Hey everybody, I'm Sharon. I'm the COO of Trajektory, and I am taking over Trajektory Takeoff this week. I'm joined by Doug Nickerson, who is an expert in sports sponsorship, BI, data analytics, kind of a wealth of knowledge across the board. So welcome. We're really excited to have you and chat with you today.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, why don't we start by hearing a little bit of your background, what roles you've had. I know you've worked across a bunch of leagues, so give us a little bit of what that looked like.
Sure, yeah. So transitioning into the sports world, I went back to school for my MBA. But don't want to admit it, but it was 2012 through 2014. George Washington University, give a little shout out. And during that time, I interned with both Monumental Sports, so I got some NBA, some NHL experience with the Nationals, so MLB experience, and then after that, transitioned into working the NFL for 5.5 years, and then MLB team for last year and a half. And with all of those, got a great experience across all the leagues.
Awesome. So were you in the BI side for all of those, or did you get to see a little bit of different groups within those organizations?
Through all the organization was mainly on the BI side or the sales side, but in any organization, you're really getting just asked questions from all parts of the organization. So I was always integrated with all the other departments.
Yeah, that's fair. I feel like I experienced that as well, and I was not on the BI side. Through those teams, with all the different leagues that you've experienced, would you say that a lot of the BI teams are run similarly? Is data collection, consistent in how you're going about that? And I guess my last question across league is, did you find that brands are looking for similar reporting and structure in that?
I guess I always hate this answer, but it kind of depends. So I guess it's different, but it depends on like who the sponsor was and what information they wanted and what they focused on. So some sponsors more focused on quantity. So you can maybe have a big email list and they want to reach out to a number of people or your attendance or in stadium things. And then so depending on those, it kind of dictated how specific the data accuracy that was being pushed. For me on the data side, always wanted to have the most accurate data. So, always looking for 5 pieces of information to understand who the person is, if they're signing up for something or along those lines. But and then between leagues, it's really kind of, you definitely see a difference based on, you can kind of see it from how the game is consumed, where in NFL, there's, you only have 16 games, 8 home games, if you don't want to include the preseason games. And then in those, so the attendance for those games is much higher. They're on national broadcast TV versus the other leagues, which are more your regional sports networks, only have a few national broadcast TV games, smaller attendance. So the kind of what data was needed or what was really looking for really differed. And then so since your goals were different, what the data was, how it was being consumed or needed changed as well. So it's definitely difference between all the leagues.
Sure. So for the leagues like MLB, where they have a ton of games and not all nationally broadcast, was it difficult to get game by game information, and how automated could you even get some of that stuff?
For the MLB, the game stuff it's actually hard, to be honest, to get all that data together into the league's data warehouse. It's run by BAM, so that's MLB's Baseball Advanced Media, and for them, they run it, so you kind of are at their whim for what information you can get, how you can get it, and as an individual on a team, you don't have much say over it. So on the flip side, the nice thing is you got a lot of good information on like MLB TV and who's signing into those. But from a broadcast TV or regional network side of things, you don't really have much of that information, which makes it really tough, to be honest.
I'm sure. I did not do MLB. I was in some of the other leagues, and I still found some of that to be true when trying to aggregate everything together. But keeping on the MLB train, since spring training just started and it's kind of a main focus, I kind of want to focus our chat around MLB if that works for you. So asking a couple of MLB specific questions. With your experience, you kind of just touched on a lot of it, but what role does sponsor reporting play in MLB specifically? What did you find, whether within the organization you were with or just from conversations across the league, are some of the great things about how MLB does it, and then some of the challenges that kind of exist in the MLB?
For sure. So I would say it's kind of interesting is that when you're with one team, you're thinking like my situation's so unique and no one else probably has these issues. And then you start talking to your counterparts at other teams, and you realize that everyone's really in the same boat for the most part, and everyone has the same issues, and maybe just slightly a little bit different. So I mean, that's always comforting to know. And in that sense, we always kind of tried to bounce ideas off other people and on other teams to figure out how they're addressing certain issues. And then then in the sponsorship side of things, there's always the reporting end is extremely important. I mean, that's really how the partners really know if they're getting their money back, their ROI on the deals. And so making sure those are accurate, making sure that they're in the format that they want them in a timely manner, and that we've fulfilled the contract is hugely important. And it can be a little stressful because the process, and this is one of the areas which, if you talk to anyone in that role, it is never really a fully ironed out process of going from contract to fulfillment to data reporting on it. And it's always kind of this mad dash of getting it done and getting it thrown over and making sure it's accurate. And one of the pain points of that is, there's data here, there's data there, there's a spreadsheet here, there's a spreadsheet there, and just trying to get all that data together so it's accurate and concise and is in the way that they want to digest it, so it's trustworthy and they feel comfortable with that report. So it always seems like this big mad dash hurdle, and then to get it out, and then you're like, oh, we're good, gotta do it again in a month or something like that.
And did you use tools to help, whether vendors or software tools that helped put that stuff together? Do a lot of the teams use the same tools, or is it kind of just, team to team? From what I've seen in the past, it's like some teams are more technologically advanced, some have BI teams, some don't. How does it, from a brand that might have a partnership with multiple MLB teams, and they're getting that information very potentially differently from each team, is there any reconciliation across that for the league, like to help the teams out in that sense?
Sadly, not really. I think it's my perspective on the sponsorship is in some way lagging in the analytics space compared to ticket sales, where pricing, quantities and going after renewal models and such for on the ticketing side is I think very developed in comparison to the sponsorship side, where depending on who's putting the report together, even within one team, it can look different than something else that another partner is going to get, just based on trying to get it out. Like I mentioned before, it's like you're just in this hurry to get it out. And I think some teams have gotten to a process where they're using some vendors that can make the process a little bit better, but you're still trying to get your TV information from over here and your social information from over here. And there's the teams that are a little bit bigger that have already maybe brought some of that together in their own data warehouse. Maybe they have a better system, but most teams that I've talked to don't have that, and they're just hoping to, it's just a pain point that they just haven't found the right solution for, to be honest.
Yeah.
And so that they're in the league is not quite made it a priority based on, but I think that hopefully maybe that's changing in some ways based on COVID and ticket sales not being the main source of revenue at this point.
Yeah, and so you mentioned, I mean, you kind of mentioned just the warehouse, and you mentioned BAM earlier. Can you talk a little bit more about BAM and what their role in kind of that team, individual team data is, and how they currently provide it, and what your experience with that has been?
Sure. So with BAM and MLB, the league in general, they're trying to work more to get teams more data, more analysis to be better for to consume and make better decisions across the business. So whether that's sponsorship or ticketing, etc. So they're trying. It's just I think with the sponsorship side of things, it's hard to collect that data, as we've kind of mentioned with the TV broadcasts and other such things. So the data they've provided is through GCP, is that they switched over to that Google-based product, BigQuery, and getting that data basically all together through using a platform called Looker. It's kind of like a Tableau to basically data visualize that information. However, it's there, and I would say that's the good part of it, is that they're making progress to get that data accessible. However, there's still kind of this learning curve that teams have to have someone apply it. They have to make sure it's specialized for the team versus kind of maybe it's a little bit broad or only works for the majority of teams because they're all using one platform versus some teams that aren't using others. And so there's definitely some learning curve to it, and it's not a robust, perfect solution, but it's something that's moving in the right direction to get teams more data to make more decisions and make better decisions to hopefully make more money, right?
Yeah, and that seems great, because I can imagine that with the varying levels of what teams ingest from BAM currently, just based on what they're able to, that also then goes back to what they provide to partners. And so partners, even if there is a singular organization like BAM providing data for digital and stuff like that, partners are still getting different types of analytics based on whatever a team can provide, which it should be definitely more consistent in how it's being adapted and brought to life. So it's so good to hear that they're moving in that direction. And it sounds like there just needs to be some kind of bridge from them to the teams that need a little extra support and help.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that one common pain point is, a lot of teams are, from a business intelligence standpoint, are the average, I think, is 2.5 people. And that and that's for the entire organization. So it's tough to fill all the needs, and that's definitely where our teams are looking for any help they can get to help fill those gaps.
Yeah. No, that's always, and I feel like with kind of the current climate, and you touched on this too, is the shift in what sponsorship looks like this year versus 2019, and even what happened with 2020 is going to be more questions from partners, more requests probably for proof of concept and proof of return, and even just the flexibility and shift of assets from in-stadium to digital. And so have you seen that MLB has been kind of good on their feet over the last year and a half of innovating those sponsorships, in being able to shift some of that, data and reporting to basically help, guide some of that budget gap that's happening?
Oh, I mean, definitely. MLB was trying to do their best for getting teams as much as possible, and especially, I mean, MLB kind of had the hardest season to kind of adjust, considering their season was just about to start, and so the whole season was really impacted versus NHL, NBA, which had their seasons abbreviated. They were able to stop and kind of readjust, but you definitely saw a lot of new assets and new new categories that teams were trying to push forward and things, and it was, you know, anything was open, which was great in terms of a lot more digital you know, digital ads for, you know, or how do I say it, they kind of superimposed on the screen, where you probably saw that, you know, batters coming up and there's no one in the stands, but you're seeing like something here and something here, and which was great, because I think that was something that you normally wouldn't be able to try. And so it was a great way to kind of have some make goods and even bring in new partners with those assets. And they're a lot better, a little easier to track in some ways from the video digital aspect of things versus some of the just hard in stadium signs or tarps.
How hard is it to price or value a completely new asset like that? And how quickly did they, they obviously quickly were able to pull that together, but how does, you know, a team like one that you were a part of, you know, value or price that in such a short amount of time with no historical information?
It's a really tough one, because it's kind of one of those where you just try and find some comparables and try and price it at that. And then you hope that that value is close enough, to be honest, for the short term. And then you kind of iterate from there and you adjust the price, you know, as you go forward. I think it's kind of the same thought process with tickets in a lot of ways. When you open up a new area of the stands, you try and find the best price for it, and then, you know, you adjust from there.
Yeah, what do you think is going to be some permanent shift because of the last year and a half, you know, and going into this season with probably limited fans still? What shifts that have happened because of that do you think are going to be permanent and stick for future years?
I think some things that I hope stick and stay is obviously new categories from, you know, the kind of the personal hygiene PPE type categories. I think is going to be something that should stick for a while. The fan at home experience, I think, is going to be something that is, if properly cultivated, could be a new way to really cultivate fans who are maybe not in the DMA of that team, and really are able to, you know, keep them in touch, even if they live on the other side of the country.
Yeah.
And then kind of the last area I think that's really going to kind of blow up from this is the gambling aspect of things. And that's going to be a huge, both from a sponsorship side of things and data collection and new areas of stadiums as they bring people back. So I think that's an area that is tangent to sponsorship, but it's going to be something everyone's going to see soon.
Yeah, the betting side of things is going to be so interesting across all the leagues to try to see how that goes. And I'm all for it. I just think that they need to you know, optimize it to be, one, help the teams all recover a little bit. I think that's a great thing that has happened in the last year to help them recover. But I just think it's smart to bring it in-house and, you know, have those partnerships done.
Mm-hmm.
So what, you know, through all of this, there's obviously like a lot of good stuff coming out of, you know, a little more digital focus, a little more need for the reporting structures to be more advanced for some of the partners over the, you know, for the next year or so. What do you think would make it easier on teams in the coming years to be able to do this better? And that's a really open-ended question. But, you know, especially some teams are thin now too. Like the front offices have thinned out a little bit. I'm sure people will come back as fans come back, but with less, you said there are maybe only 2 or 3 in a group, BI group sometimes, and now that could be even less. What could teams be doing to, you know, help not lose and just and help grow, but also just help sustain right now?
Good question. So I think it's anything that kind of can automate or make the process faster and easier and accurate, more trustworthy. I think that anything that checks those boxes is going to make things a lot better for teams, just to be able to get more done than, you know, one person doing it by hand, essentially. I think that's really where teams need the most help, and that's always kind of a common theme. I think a lot of people don't understand when they get into the sports industry, is that mom and pop size staff, but but the brand equity is like, you know, a Fortune 500 value. So it's funny how that works out.
No, totally. And hopefully, you know, the technologies that are coming out, and, you know, my shameless plug is that one of the intentions of Trajektory is to help with a lot of the issues that you brought up today. So, you know, we're always excited to share that, and hopefully we help become that solution. So that's my one little plug. But is there anything else that you want to dive into for MLB or sponsorship in general? We love hearing all about everything you know.
I think the biggest thing is maybe just retouching on that. I think it's an area that is just ripe for growth from an analytics perspective. I think there's a lot of hard hurdles that have to be overcome from a data collection standpoint and a data accuracy standpoint. But if some of those can be bridged, then I think it's an area that can really take off from, you know, optimizing your contract values and making sure you have the right assets to the right companies, and just really making sure that you're getting as much out of that area of the business that I think has been a little bit dated in how it approaches some of their valuations going up to this point.
No, awesome. Well, that is all the questions I had to pepper you with today. Super appreciate you chatting with us. You know, your knowledge on all of this is really great, and it helps advance the conversation to get a lot of this stuff, you know, moving forward, and the solutions growing. So, you know, it's great to get it out there. So thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. It was great.
All right, well, we'll talk to you soon, and we'll be posting this up on social. So we'll see everyone soon.
Sounds good.
Okay. Bye.